This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
I have on as a guest, I'm really so proud to have the distinguished Mick Mulvaney, who served very faithfully as Donald Trump's chief of staff. Were you his second or third chief of staff, Mick?
Third. It was Reince Priebus, John Kelly, me, and then Mark Meadows.
Yeah, wow. And so we're just having fun reminiscing of what that must have been like to be in the Oval Office with Donald J. Trump. One of the things I wanted to ask you about was you did, just to go back for the people who are just joining us, you had served as the budget director for Trump. And just so folks know, the budget director is the one who is responsible for coming up with a federal budget that hopefully will eventually balance. You came out with some pretty tough budgets. I really admired you for that. But Mick, we didn't make a lot of progress in cutting spending, and that's the one.
Oh, listen, Steve, I'll tell you why. You know, I can't give any names because the folks are still around in D.C., but, you know, I did the budget in 2017.
Yeah, it was a great budget. Great budget.
President called great budget. Thank you, I appreciate that. The Wall Street Journal said it was the most Reagan-esque, you know, where it actually talked about balancing. And I get a call from the Oval Office and says, come on down, President wants to see you. So I hadn't been down there very often. I come down, and it's the President of the Oval Office and a very, very high-ranking Republican senator. You can fill in the blank on guessing whoever that might be.
I know. Okay.
And, the President looks at he says, Mick, Senator so-and-so think very much about your budget. And he looks at the senator and says, tell Mick what you just told me. He says, well, you know, Mr. President, you know, we all have a lot of respect for Mr. Mulvaney. He's really good with numbers. He's one of the best guys in town on budgets and so forth. But look, you're elected and he's not. No one has ever lost their job in this town for spending too much money. They have lost their job.
I know who you're talking about. Okay,
they have lost their job for not spending
enough.
And
he really did say that.
Yeah, absolutely said it to the president right in front of me.
Yeah.
So when the Republicans are saying that in the Senate,
I know.
How do you expect the Republican president? And keep in mind, Congress spends the money, which means that Donald Trump would have had to veto Republican spending bills. And that's really hard to do.
It is. So that brings me to your protege, and that is Russ Vought. Russ Vought worked for you right before he became budget director, isn't that right?
One of my favorite guys in Washington. You have no idea. I talked to Russ a couple times.
Yeah, I thought so. So he is now putting. Yeah, so Russ Vought is now putting together the. And by the way, I thought he was sensational in his testimony before the Senate in his confirmation hearing. He there's a guy who doesn't back down. And by the way, you know what's so wonderful about those kind of, and yours was the same way. You know, I always said that in Washington, knowledge is power. So if you know more about an issue than, you know, the person who's grilling you, you've got an upper hand. And it was so clear both with your confirmation and Russ's that they know both of you knew so much more about the budget than these guys do that you both ran circles around them. But Russ did an amazing job at that hearing. But Russ is going to come forward with a budget very soon. And I think it'll also be a Reaganite budget. But I'm worried about whether Republicans are going to do the same thing and just, you know, dead on arrival.
Yes. And that's a real risk. Here's the difference. First of all, and you know, look, I'm a big fan of the Doge group.
Me too.
Not because I don't think they're going to be particularly successful, just because it's really hard to change Washington. But they're going to make fiscal issues, conservative issues, civil service reform. They're going to bring it front and center. I describe it as one of the most important PR campaigns in Washington history. I beat the drum. Russ and I were beating the drum about spending and civil service reform and the size of the government. And, you know, nobody cared because it wasn't really that sexy. Now people care about it. Elon Musk is better at this than I am. He's smarter than I am. And if they can figure out a way to bring this to the forefront to where the American public start demanding change. Keep in mind, we had proposed reforms of the federal government and had our own cabinet secretaries undermining us. I remember the Secretary of Defense tried to undo what we tried to do with the Army Corps of Engineers. So you had people pulling in all sorts of different directions. Because of Doge, I think everybody's pulling the same direction. So I do think there's a chance we might make some progress.
Well, I also think, by the way, my guest is Mick Mulvaney, the former budget director for Donald Trump and the former chief of staff. So there's very few people alive who know more about Trump's business and presidential habits than Mick Mulvaney. Mick, Trump, do you think that Trump wants to cut the budget? I mean, I got the sense that he kind of, after that meeting that you talked about with Senator McConnell, that he just kind of threw in the towel and said, okay, nobody's going to cut the budget. And so we're just going to let it.
I was sitting there asking him to spend less. Russ Vought was asking him to spend less. But leadership in the House, leadership in the Senate, we're not only asking him to spend more, they were sending him bills that spent more.
I know. And the dirty little secret of Washington is you discovered, because I remember when you first came to Washington, that's when you and I met at a meeting when you were a freshman in Congress. And, we all come in with a naivete that Republicans are the good guys on the budget and Democrats are the bad guys. And then you realize, hey, there are a lot of Republicans who are not good guys on the budget.
I remember walking over to the budget committee one day, and there was one of the old bulls, and you know what that means.
Yeah,
I do. There forever. He said, "Oh, you're Mulvaney. Welcome." I guess, you Tea Party guys. I love you guys. You fiscal hawks. There was a bunch of you guys around with Reagan in the '80s, and then y'all left, and I was still here. And a bunch of them came in with Newt. We're going to balance the budget, blah blah blah. And they all left, and I'm still here, and now you're here. And pretty soon you're going to be gone, and I'll still be here. And I'm gone, and he's still there.
So, Mick, we just have 2 or 3 minutes left, and I appreciate so much you holding over for a few extra minutes. But tell me your favorite fun story about Donald Trump when you were with him in the Oval Office. I was with you, invited me over many times and had so many interesting meetings with Trump in the Oval Office. And he's a funny guy, and he's a lively guy. And just I wonder if any parting comments about some of your remembrances of being in the Oval Office and doing the job with Donald Trump.
Yeah, I can't do it in 2 minutes. I'll give you the short version of one of my favorite times to work for him was the time we were flying to the G20 in Osaka, Japan, and he tweeted out, how cool would it be to stop off and see Kim Jong-un on the way back at the DMZ? And Mike Pompeo was on the flight with me. We looked at each other. There's no way that's going to happen. And 26 hours later, it was happening.
That's
Trump
amazing.
Being Trump. It was fantastic. Listen, he's not the easiest guy in the world to work for, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
One thing that story, exemplifies, and maybe a final comment on this, is that one of the things that's really impressed me about Donald Trump is that he thinks outside the box. And so many times he'll come up with these ideas, like on Greenland, that why don't we just purchase Greenland? And why didn't we think of that before? But anyway, I love the fact that he's just not orthodox in his thinking, that he's big thinker. And sometimes his big ideas are not great ideas, but sometimes he comes up with brilliant ideas that nobody else thought of.
I didn't have Greenland on my bingo card. I didn't have Kim Jong-un at the DMZ on my bingo card. But
exactly.
All in all, it was pretty productive. And I'm really looking forward to the next 4 years. I can't tell you how excited I am. You're right. There's an optimism here, even more so than there was 8 years ago.
Mick Mulvaney, you are an American hero. Thanks so much for coming on. I look forward to seeing you again. And by the way, you write a weekly column now for New York Post?
Twice a month for the Post and once a week for The Hill in Washington, D.C.
Awesome. Well, great columns. I love seeing your stuff. Folks, that's Mick Mulvaney.